Hello everybody, Super Jordan Reviews here, and today I'm going to do another speed round ranking video. So today I'm going to be talking about all 7 Harry Potter books, and I'm going to rank them from worst to best. And just a disclaimer, this is my opinion, so it's not necessarily the right opinion, but it's just my personal takes on these books. And another thing is that while I do also love the movies, the books in it of themselves are some of my favorite pieces of just entertainment in general. So I really have a soft spot for all of these books, and I'll do a movie ranking later on, but for now I'm going to be talking just about the books. And so let's get started. So right at number 7, I have the Half-Blood Prince. So I know the Half-Blood Prince is usually one of the more better received books, but for some reason it was never my favorite. And even rereading it 2 more times, like after I first read it, I still couldn't really get into it as much as I wanted to. I mean, yeah, the darker tone does kind of fit in this kind of style, but there's other things that I just felt didn't really work for me, in my opinion. Like, for example, I don't think like this. I feel like the trio is kind of unlikable and, well, not unlikable, but in the sense like I feel like it doesn't really work as much as it does in the other books, and it's just kind of annoying, kind of seeing them all going against each other for like the entirety of the book, like how Ron is constantly a jerk throughout the book, and I feel like Hermione kind of gets a little annoying with her antics in this, in the sense that she continues her kind of more overprotective attributes, but I feel like it's really exaggerated in this book, which really kind of annoys me in some parts. That, and I feel like the overall mystery with Draco and the Half Blood Prince storyline is probably some of my least favorite in terms of, it's probably like my least favorite like mystery stuff in the whole series. At least in my opinion, I just didn't think it was as intriguing as some of the other books that I'll talk about a little later. Now, even though it is at the bottom, I still really enjoy the book. It's kind of hard for me to dislike something Harry Potter-ish just because it still feels very at home. And something that really does work, especially on repeat readings, are I really like Harry and Ginny's romance. I think it's really fleshed out, and I feel like it has a lot of weight to it. And rereading it, I was actually kind of surprised because I kind of went more on the movie side, but kind of being able to look at it again, it's a lot better than I remembered. And it is still like part of the darker territory, so it still has a lot of really cool elements, like the stuff with the cave and Dumbledore's death scene is really powerful. But yeah, moving on to number 6, I have the Chamber of Secrets. So this is usually people's number 7 least favorite book, but I actually quite enjoy it. I mean, it's still not my favorite just because it doesn't have as complex of themes or complex of storylines as some of the other books, but I still think it's a really solid, fun adventure book. Like, I'd say it's probably one of the more fun, or within the top 3 in terms of most fun, like, storylines. And I do think the Chamber of Secrets mystery in it of itself is still really enjoyable. I think just the fact that it kind of is a little smaller in scale and doesn't have like the luxury of the original in the sense that it's the first time you're being introduced to the world. I think that brings it down just a little bit, but I think this one doesn't deserve to be as forgotten as it is. And then going into number 5, I'm going to be going into the Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone. I'm from America, so I usually just call it Sorcerer's Stone, but I know it's technically the Philosopher's Stone. So this one is I really enjoy this book too. It's probably the one I've read the most out of all 7 of them, just because it's so short and it is the beginning of it. And right off the bat, I think the main thing that this book has going for it is the world building. Just the fact that this is the one that introduces us to everything like Diagon Alley, Hogwarts, and a bunch of characters that we get to meet for the first time and get to know and love. I think that alone brings it up a lot. I will say though that I do think it probably has the weakest story out of all 7 of the books. Just because I do think like the specific storyline about the Sorcerer's Stone is kind of weak, and at least Chamber of Secrets kind of try to pull it together with Tom Riddle's diary becoming a Horcrux. Whereas I feel like this one, in terms of story, kind of just gets forgotten storyline wise. Like how Quirrell doesn't really have like a role or an impact on the story, and while it does set up some storylines like Snape's kind of sinisterness, I do think it's still a little off in the sense that it's not as memorable as, let's say, like a lot of the other chapters. I think the main thing with this one is the world building and kind of more like, because it's still within like the more kiddie, or I don't want to say kiddie, but like the more like lighthearted tone. You're still able to have like a lot of fun with it. So that's something else that I really do like. And then going into my number 4 spot, I have Prisoner of Azkaban. I know this is usually people's number 1 favorite book, but just bear with me. I really do love The Prisoner of Azkaban. I mean, I love all of these books. And kind of here, like from this one and number 3, I kind of go back and forth on a lot, but that's not to mean that Prisoner of Azkaban's bad, of course. It does a lot of really good stuff in terms of fleshing out the story, or more so the world, because I feel like this is kind of one of the books where I was able to kind of have fun because they didn't have to, introduce like all this Voldemort stuff, which it does have to like right after this book. So I feel like this one kind of took more advantage and wanted to just flesh out the world a little more and even give a little more to Harry's past, which I really do enjoy. Like, I feel like characters like Sirius and Lupin are really well developed, and it was really cool to read about their kind of their pasts too. Like, one of my favorite chapters in the whole series is the one where we get to learn a lot about the Marauders and how they would all go into the Whopping Willow. Something that does bring it down for me, at least in my opinion, is that I think the time travel stuff is a little stupid. I mean, it's interesting and all, but I feel like it just creates too many plot holes in the series. So it's something that I choose to just... I mean, I know we're supposed to just live with it, but it does frustrate me just a little bit. That and... it never really had like as much of an impact on me as others. I've always just seen this as a really fun and interesting story, but not really much that I really grasped onto. And so going into number 3, I have Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So this is the finale to everything that was being built up to, and I gotta say, I thought it was really well done. I think J.K. Rowling did a really good job of wrapping up so many storylines up, and I honestly don't know like how much more can like be changed to really improve it, because I think she just did a really solid job. I really like the tone of it in the sense that I feel like it's really cool that we kind of get that moment where we realize that our main trio aren't kids anymore and things are real now. And I really liked kind of the part of the book where they kind of just started going off on their own, like when they realized that they had no home to go back to anymore. And I think the beginning of the book, from just the beginning to like the Ministry chase and then the Battle of Hogwarts, those are probably the greatest parts of any Harry Potter book. In fact, I think if the entire book was that quality, it would easily be number 1. My issue, like the thing that brings it down to number 3, is the middle of the book. I do think the pacing does kind of suffer a little bit in the middle with like the camping scenes, and it does get a little cliche with the stuff like with Ron kind of running off. I thought it was well executed in terms of like the trio dynamic, but it still feels like a big halt. Like whenever I read this book, I always just get bored in the middle of it until we get into like Malfoy Manor, which I also think is really powerful. And Dobby's death is definitely one of the most impactful death scenes in the entire series. And then I usually think that the Gringotts scene is okay, but then Battle of Hogwarts is where it really picks up. And this book alone has 2 of my favorite chapters. Prince's Tale, just being able to really see more of Snape's past. And then right after that, in the forest again, where we really see Harry just be able to accept his fate. And I think that's just a really powerful chapter overall. And it's overall a really satisfying conclusion. My only issue, like I said, is the middle of it. And going into number 2, I have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This is a really good book. In my opinion, this is probably the most fun book to read in the series, just because of all the different things that this book does when it comes to like the world building and the Quidditch World Cup, the Goblet of Fire stuff, the Triwizard Tournament. All of it is really amazing, and I really love how they use like the tournament to really world build in the sense that we see that there's more magical schools out there, and how each of the different tournaments really gives like a little bit more background to the different creatures like mermaids, dragons, and then in the maze is amazing. Like it was really cool seeing how Harry was going through the maze and running into all kinds of different creatures like acromantulas, sphinxes, bogarts, and blast-handed shrews. It was really interesting to me. And I don't really have any reasoning for why it's lower. Really, it's just I don't really have many issues with the book. I think the only thing that holds it back is that number 1 is just a book that has a really special place in my heart, and in my opinion, Goblet of Fire doesn't really hit quite that level, although it's really up there just for how entertaining it is to read. And I think the graveyard scene is probably one of the greatest scenes, or yeah, greatest like set of chapters overall. Just I feel like just reading all of that was really just a page turner in the sense that it keeps you really invested into it. And kind of the build up to the next book, number 1, Order of the Phoenix, I thought was really well done. And Order of the Phoenix, I know it's usually like a more not necessarily controversial Harry Potter book, but in the sense that it's usually all over the place on people's rankings. And personally, I put it at the top. And my reasoning for that is that I feel like it's the book that had the most impact, at least on like me when I read it, just because I feel like that's the book that really incorporated the themes of Harry Potter the best, in my opinion. Just because, we get to see all the characters come back, and I feel like J.K. Rowling really put a big emphasis on Harry's kind of loneliness, and that's in this book, in the sense that Voldemort's just been messing with his mind, and I feel like this book is one of the most accurate kind of depictions of depression and PTSD, and just reading about like Harry's inner thoughts, I thought were really intense, and kind of seeing the transition from the beginning of the book towards the end, where right after Sirius dies, and he kind of realizes, oh, he does have friends, and he doesn't have to do this by himself. That in it of itself was really great writing, in my opinion. And not to say that it doesn't have like its really cool moments besides its emotional moments. It really does. Like, another one of my favorite chapters in the whole series was The One Man He Ever Feared, where we get to see Dumbledore and Voldemort go against each other for the one time in the series. Was really amazing to read about. It was really intense and had me at the edge of my seat while reading it. And even earlier on, where I feel like they really do continue to flesh out the series by going into like the Ministry of Magic more, and kind of their side in the sense that they're against Harry just because they don't want to deal with the idea of Voldemort being back, and seeing how fear kind of overruns Cornelius Fudge in that case, which, while it can be frustrating to read sometimes, I feel like it does a really good job of humanizing all the characters, where even though you may not necessarily agree with a lot of them, you can still see where they're coming from. And Umbridge is by far one of like the most fun characters to hate on. Just seeing her like the way that she talks to students, and then eventually like the way she gets her comeuppance is really funny. And yeah, that's my ranking of all 7 Harry Potter books. Yeah, feel free to give me your ranking down in the comments below. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you really enjoyed this, feel free to comment some more ideas for rankings that I can do in the future. And feel free to also share. Yeah, just let me know what do you guys think and other ways that I can help improve the channel. Yeah, see you guys next time.